Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever and whenever you are. My name is Benjamin, and welcome to the RPG inventory tutorial. So I have been spending hours and hours and hours working on this tutorial. I actually even completely recorded this video and it was corrupt, so this is my second go on it. And I'm super excited for this tutorial because I've made it basically as easy as possible. So I've only introduced a few aspects of having a inventory example, and I've kept it pretty simple, so I'm probably going to have a couple other videos after this. Let's get started though, because I don't want to waste a lot of time because this video takes, it's going to be a little bit longer than my other videos. So the first thing we're going to want to do is create a script, and this is going to be for the player's movement. So we're going to call this script player move, and I'm going to just type a lot of this code and then explain it really quickly afterwards. So I'm going to use WASD for the keyboard input for the player. So WASD, make sure these are capitalized right here. So I'm just grabbing the different inputs for those keys. Then we're going to do if W, which is upright, motion, add, 90 is the direction if you're going up, and we're going to do an acceleration of 1. And we're going to copy this, and really quickly I'm going to maximize this so it's easier to see, or you copy it 4 times, WASD. So A is going to be to the left, which is 180, and S is going to be down, which is 270, and D is going to be to the right, which is 0 or 360, but I usually use 0. Now we're going to do, we need to check, we have to add some friction into this. So if not A and not S and not D and not W, friction equals 1, which is the same as our acceleration. So we should accelerate and decelerate at the same speed. Else friction equals 0. Okay, now we need to put a max speed on this. So if speed is greater than 4, speed equals 4. That's supposed to be 4. And then we're going to do, we want to make sure the player is always facing the mouse. So we're going to do image angle equals point direction x, y, mouse x, mouse y. And that's all we need for that one. Now we're going to do another script really quick, which is just going to be a shadow script. Script draw shadow. So draw the shadow and the plate and the object. So this is a little bit of a longer one, but we'll so I'll make that maximize like that. So the first thing we need is the offset. Var offset. Oh yeah, I need to do this differently. Script draw shadow offset. Okay. So the offset is going to be argument 0. And we're only doing the offset to add a little bit of depth. Taller items will have a larger offset for the shadow. Draw the shadow and the object. And we're going to do draw sprite ext sprite index 0 x minus offset y minus offset. No, I want to do y plus offset 1, 1, which are the scaling, image angle for the rotation, C black for the color, and 0.4 for the alpha. So that's drawing the shadow. We're just drawing the exact same sprite with a little bit of an offset, drawing it black with an alpha value, so it'll look like a shadow. And then we want to draw self. Awesome. So that's done. Let's add in our player. We'll create a player object right here. Call this object player. Give it the player sprite, and we're going to give it an event, which is going to be our step event, and we'll just do move the player, and we'll call this we'll call our script move player, script player move. Yeah, that's what it was. And then we're going to do our draw event. Add event, draw, and I'm pretty sure in the player's draw event the offset for the shadow is 4, so draw the shadow and the player. Script draw shadow with an offset of 4. Awesome. Okay. So we have our player. He should be able to move around in the room. In fact, really quickly, we're going to create the tree object as well. So object tree. We'll give it the tree sprite. We'll give it a create event. Inside this create event, we're going to do randomize the image. And we're going to do script draw, image angle equals random 360. And then inside of this, we're going to do we're going to add a step event to the tree, and we want to check if the player is under the tree, because we want to be able to see the player if it's under the tree. So if point distance x, y, so our current position, object player dot x, object player dot y, the player's current position is less than 64, then image alpha equals 0.55. I've already tested this and that's a good value. Else image alpha equals 1. And then we just want to draw a shadow, and we're going to give, so do a draw event. We're going to give the tree and its shadow, we're going to give it a higher offset. 16. Cool. So let's create a room now. Create a room, and this room, let's go into settings. We'll call it room 1, and go into views. Actually, go into backgrounds first. You'll notice I've got the player sprite. I've got an inventory box sprite, which is just 32 by 32, a tree, and then two 16 by 16 icons. And I've also got this background that's 64 by 64. It's just a grass background. So those are the resources I'm working with. Also, if you have problems or if you just want these resources, I'm putting the download file in the description. So you can grab those there. So we don't want to draw a background color, and we want to draw a background. Now come into views, enable the use of views, visible when room starts. The width is going to be 320, the height is going to be 180, and the port on this screen is going to be 640 and 360. And we're going to do object following. It's going to follow the player. The horizontal border is going to be 120, which is half of our view width, and 160, and then 90, which is half of the height. And then we'll put, well, let's put a couple trees in here. make it look good. And let's put the player in, put him right here. And at this point we should be able to run the game real fast. And we should have basic like movement for a top-down RPG type game. So we should have the movement, and the trees should go invisible when we walk under them. We've got everything. The shadows look really nice. We can move around, but we don't have an inventory yet. Nothing's working with the inventory. So let's get started on that. Now the first thing that you need to know about the inventory is that we're going to do a global controller. And this global controller has to have a sprite. And that's one of the problems I ran into in my other video. So for whatever reason, if you use instance place inside of an object and it doesn't have a sprite, instance place won't work. So we're going to call this object game controller. And we're going to give it a sprite because it has to have one. But you won't be able to see it in the game. So add a create event, and we just need to create some variables. So create item variables. So we're going to have a variable called item and a variable called global.gameStatus. Global.gameState equals run. Okay, global dot wow item equals -1. So the global item is whatever item you're carrying around with the mouse. You're dragging. If you pick up an item and put it in inventory, when it's in that dragging state, that's going to be the global item. Right now we just want it set to -1, which means you don't have a global item. Now we're going to do a global left released, and this is going to be dropping the item. So mouse global left released. And this is literally the ugliest code in this whole tutorial. It's pretty big. So drop the item. Bear with me here. And we'll type it out and kind of work through it together. If global.item does not equal -1, which is if we have an item. Right? If it's not equal to -1, then we actually have something. If instance place mouse x, mouse y, object inventory box, and global dot game state equals pause, var instance place var box equals instance place mouse x, mouse y, object inventory box. And you can see I actually forgot a comma here, so that's why there's a red arrow there. Okay, inventory box. And so make sure the slot is empty. If box dot item equals -1, put the item in the box. Box.item equals global.item, and global.item equals -1. Else drop the item on the ground. Instance create mouse x, mouse y, global.item. I forgot one of my commas again. and global.item equals -1. Else, we're going to copy this code because we're just going to drop the item again. Now I'm going to explain this to you real quick because I like to explain my code. So what are we doing? We're checking if we have an item that we're dragging, right? If we do have an item and we're over a box, an inventory box, and the game is paused, so that means we're showing the box, we get a reference to that box, and we put the item, well, if the box doesn't have an item in it already, we put that item in the box with box.item equals global.item, and then we empty the global.item slot. Global.item equals -1. If not, we create that object in the room on the ground and then empty the global item slot. If we're not over a box or the box is invisible because the game state is running, then we'll also just put that item on the ground. So that's what that does, and that's the hardest code in this entire thing. So good job, let's move on. Add a draw event, and this draw event is going to be it's not super complicated, but it's not necessarily super easy either. So draw the held item. So we need to draw the item if global.item does not equal -1. So if we have an item, draw sprite object get sprite global.item 0 mouse x mouse y. So basically what this says is if we have an item, then we want to get that item sprite and then draw that item sprite on the mouse's x and y coordinates. So that's the dragging. Okay. Now we're going to add one more in here, and this is going to be a key press, and it's going to be a letter, and it's going to be the E key. And inside of here, this is going to be where we're going to control the game state. So switching between pausing and not pausing. So we're going to do a switch statement here. Well, just so I can teach you guys how they work. A switch statement is kind of like if else. We're going to do switch global.gameState case run global.gameState equals pause break case pause global.gameState equals run. Break let's see, default break. So let me explain how a switch statement works. So we're checking this variable global.gameState, and these are like mini if statements. If global.gameState equals run, set global.gameState to pause and then jump out of this whole thing. That's what the break does. It jumps out of this whole thing. If case equals pause, set it to run and jump out of this whole thing. If it doesn't equal any of them, then just jump out of this whole thing because we don't want to do anything. So this just switches the game between the pausing and the running state, which will display or not display the inventory boxes. So now we've created our global game controller. Let's put that in the room. Okay. And we're going to want to create our inventory boxes. So create a new object, and we'll call this, actually really quick, go into the game settings up here, and you're going to want to make sure that it will just look nicer if you make sure that this is unchecked. Interpolate colors between pixels should be unchecked. So that was just a quick thing to help your game look a little bit better. It won't look blurry. Object, inventory box. Okay, so we've made it to the inventory box. There's only one part that's a little bit tricky in this, so let's get going right here. Do a create event, and the inventory box needs an item variable. Create the item variable. So item equals -1. This is its own personal item, so whatever item is stored inside of this box. So we're going to do an end step, which is just to make the box follow the view. Make the box follow the view relative to its start location. I can't type right now, but that's okay. So x equals x start, which is just where the box started in the room, plus view x view 0. Y equals y start plus view y view 0, since that's the view. So this just makes the box follow the view around. And give the box this sprite. Now we want to add a mouse event, and this is going to be left pressed. And this is what happens when they're trying to select an item from the box, right? Take an item from this box. If item does not equal -1, so if it's not empty, if there's actually an item in here, then we're going to move the item to the global slot, global.item equals item, and then we're going to remove the item from this box. Item equals -1. Pretty easy. Now's the trickiest part for the box, because we have to draw the box and draw whatever item's in it. So we're going to do a draw event. And the only reason this is tricky is because we have to draw it relative to the view. Draw the inventory box. So I'm choosing not to use draw GUI for some specific reasons that I don't want to go into, but just so you know, I understand that you can do that and you don't have to draw stuff relative to the view anymore, but I want to do it this way. It simplified things overall for me. So if global.gameState equals pause draw set alpha 0.25, so we're setting the alpha value for what we want to draw. Draw round rect view x view 0 plus x start view y view 0 plus y start, and then it's literally just going to copy these and then add 32 to them. So I'm going to copy this and then add 32 to each one, plus 32 plus 32. And then after those, it's just whether or not it's an outline or not, and we want to say false, it's not an outline. Okay, draw set alpha back to 1. Now we want to draw the item. If item does not equal -1, draw sprite object get sprite item and then we're going to do 0 for the subimage, and the x position is going to be what we copied with adding 16 plus 16 plus 16. Yeah. And then we just need to end that and end that. So here's the first half. Here's the rest of it over here. So it's not too complicated. The only tricky part is making sure it's relative to the view and relative to the starting position of the sprite, so of the object. So that's the trickiest part about those. I would give your inventory box a -10 value. Give your trees a -5 value for depth, and give your game controller a -20 value for depth. So just to make sure that they're on top of things that way. Now, the last thing we need to do is create the item parent. So we're going to create a new object. I'm going to save the game real fast. We're going to create a new object, and we will call this object item parent. And for now, we're just going to give it the potion, and we're going to give it a create event. Actually, we don't give it a create event. We're going to give it a left pressed event. Mouse left pressed. Okay. Pick up this item from the ground. Make sure you don't have an item. So if global dot item equals -1, so if we don't have an item, global dot item equals object index, and then we just destroy this item. Instance destroy. And then we're that's pretty easy code right there. Then we're going to add in a dry event, and inside this dry event, we're just going to draw the shadow, draw the item and its shadow, and we're going to call script draw shadow 2 for the offset. Okay, so now we need to go put some inventory boxes in the room, and they're going to be relative to where you put them in the room. So if I put inventory boxes clear over here, I won't even be able to see them. So I need to make sure they're in the top left corner, and I'm going to just do, I don't really want to grab that. I'm going to do 4 inventory boxes like this. That's all. And then I'm going to put a couple items in. Just the potions, and let's run the game and see if it works. Oh, there was one more thing I wanted to do actually. So on the inventory box left pressed for picking up the item, we need to make sure that the game state and global dot game state equals pause. We need to make sure the game state is paused so that they can't take items out of the inventory when they can't see it. Now I feel like I'm forgetting something, but I don't think I am, so we'll find out, I guess. We'll try running this and see how it works. And then after this, I will show you guys how to add more items to the inventory so you're not just limited to one. So as you can see, when we press E, our inventory appears there. It follows us around the screen. That looks good. We can pick up items and drop them in different places like this. And if we pull up our inventory, we should be able to drop that item in the inventory like that. Awesome. So if you can't drop the item in the inventory, it's probably because your game controller doesn't have a sprite. That's the issue I was running into earlier. And so we can come get another item and put it in our inventory. And we're just gonna have all these potions for fighting the dragon or whatever. So you can organize them, but you can't drop an item in a slot that's already filled. It just drops it on the ground. So That is awesome. Now let's add a sword, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to add new items. Let's create a new object, and we're going to call this object sword, and we're going to give it the sword sprite, and we're going to give it a parent of the object item parent, and I am going to hide this sword. This sword is going to be like the hidden sword in the game. It's going to be the secret. I'm going to put it under this tree right here, so nobody knows about it unless they've actually been under that tree. So let's go over there and see if we can find that sword under the tree and put it in our inventory slot. Now I know what the next question is going to be, and I'm probably going to get 1,000,000 comments on this if I don't clarify, and I'll still probably get comments on this. But everyone's going to ask, how do I make the sword go into the appear on the player when I put it in the inventory? And the good news is I will be covering that. The bad news is just not in this tutorial, because this is already a long tutorial. So, but you can see we can put the sword in our inventory slot. We can have a completely full inventory with a sword and 3 potions. We are totally ready to fight the dragon. So I'm super excited. Like I said, if you had any problems, I'm putting the download link in the description for this code. You can go download it and you'll get the resources and everything for it. Also, right at the end, at the end of this video, I'm going to introduce my Patreon page. It's only like maybe 2 minutes of video, so I would really appreciate it if you watch that, just so that you know kind of what Patreon is. That's the whole reason I'm able to make this RPG tutorials, because of some of the generous contributors that I've had on Patreon. I've been able to do this RPG inventory tutorial. So I'm super excited for Patreon. I really appreciate you guys' support, and make sure to like, favorite, and share this video with your friends, and I will talk to you guys later. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever and whenever you are. My name is Benjamin, and welcome to my Patreon page. It is all over around this video and down here, and you can check that out a little bit later. But first of all, you might not have heard of Patreon. So here's what Patreon is. Patreon is like Kickstarter, only instead of having one big project and larger amounts of pledges, it has lots of little projects with lots of little teeny pledges, like maybe even $1 per month, or really low like that. So that's what Patreon is, and I am here on Patreon because I make YouTube tutorial videos for game developers, and my goal is to get young game developers, and maybe even a little bit more experienced game developers, and help them jumpstart their careers so that they can be building games in as little as like a day. They can have a finished game. So that's what my goal is here on Patreon, is to improve the quality of my videos, improve the amount of videos I do, so that I can focus less on where I'm trying to get the money, like from my day job and stuff like that, and I can focus more on the videos for you guys. So that's why I'm here on Patreon. Some of the things that you guys can get from this Patreon page, if you decide to support me by pledging, you can get access to my patron-only feed, which gives you proximity to me, and it just helps me build a more personal relationship with you. You get early access to all of my videos. You can get access to the code and resources that's associated with my videos. You will get early versions of all of my current projects. A lot of you know about my project Grain War. You can get early access to that as soon as I get some earlier demos and stuff. I'm going to be posting them on the Patreon, on the patron-only feed, activity feed. So you can also add me on Skype and get help if you run into any errors, or even I can personally tutor you on the game of your dreams, and we can help make that a reality. So if you decide to pledge and support me even just $1 a month, that is awesome. I really appreciate you guys. If you decide to support me in other ways, just by, you guys, even just watching my videos, even just watching this video helps support me. So thank you guys for that. I know that it's because of you guys that this is all possible, that I'm able to even do this and help you guys to learn. It's the support that you guys have given me, and I really love doing this, and I appreciate that support. So thank you guys a ton, and I will talk to you guys later.